Today I'm joined by Andreas Esswein, who is a 27-year-old centre mid from the Philippines. He's played, in fact, for his country, and he's played in Germany, Indonesia, and many more nations. Andy, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, of course, you were born over in Germany to a Filipino mum and a German dad. Did you grow up with any siblings in the household? And if so, did they get you into football?
Yeah, I've got an older brother who started football actually. He's 4 years older than me, and I come from a football family. But my brother was like the first one who was playing on a higher level. So at the age of, I think it was like 12, he's transferred to an academy to Karlsruhe SC, which is they played Bundesliga and now they're in second Bundesliga. So they had like a really good academy, and from there on he's transferred to Hoffenheim way back. From Hoffenheim he went back to Karlsruhe and was playing for the reserve team, was training with the pros. So I kind of had like someone to look up to. Always wanted to have the same kind of level in football. So kind of tried to get into his footsteps. My path was a bit different though, because he stayed in Germany and he decided to take it easy and focus on studies. So after he was training with the pros, but playing for the reserve team, it was at the age of maybe 18, something around that, 18, 19, maybe also 20. He decided to quit on pro level and to focus on his studies, to have like a plan B basically. Because around this time he was training twice a day, had no spare time for any other things like like a plan B. So he's done that for 2 years until he's changed his mind and said, okay, that was it. I've tried my luck, but now it's back to reality, and now he's a teacher.
Okay, so that's a very different route to what he obviously wanted to start out to be in terms of being a professional footballer. But I suppose it's quite unique where you had a brother who was 4 years older and in that professional status as well when you were so young. So when he came home after his 2 trainings a day or in his busy schedule, did he ever find time to train you up and spend time developing you as a player?
Actually, no, it was different. So when my brother transferred to the academy, obviously I was way younger, but I would always go with him because my dad was always around. He would always drive us to training, or him, and I would just go there, bring my ball, and by the side of the pitch, I would just play with myself. And sometimes even because they knew me from my brother, the coach would say like, "You can join our training. Like we need another player." And I was 4 years younger, but still, like sometimes if they had the opportunity for me, I was allowed to train with them. So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
So again, you were playing football in your background in Germany, born to a Filipino mum with a German dad. So again, that's a bit different as well, where I suppose you're a foreign guy in a different country as well. You were 50-50 in terms of the nationality. When you were growing up in school, was the school in Germany open for you to playing football? Was there facilities for you to be able to play?
Yeah, but in Germany is kind of different than to compared to other countries, because I know they have like scholarships and they got like a football team, like a school football team or whatever, but we don't really have that in Germany. So in Germany it's basically like this, like you go to school from, like my schedule was I went to school, class starts at 7:30, and then I get home by 12:15. So school's done after 12:15. So then after that, um it's your free time, so you can do whatever you want. So then after school, obviously you do your homework and then you just go to training whenever you have training. But also there's some couple uh some specific occasions, like for example when you play for the national team and then obviously you have to travel. You get like a letter from the football federation, like to get you time off from school and that you can travel to another country or play some games. So yeah, school is a bit different to other countries, but also now they got schools that are in collaborations with football clubs, especially professional football clubs. Like that's around my brother's time when he was playing in the academies. That's how when they started, because sometimes even the academy players would have training in the morning, and obviously school is in the morning. They would have like an extra school where the players are allowed to go to training and then they just do the school work after training. So they kind of try to have like professional circumstances already, where you train in the morning and then maybe afternoon again.
I spoke to Armin Meyer a few months ago now. I spoke to him twice on the podcast, and he was born up in Germany as well. And he
Yeah, I
was
know him.
always he was always mentioning about like street football in Germany and how he criticizes the fact that it stopped all of a sudden, where the younger generation coming through doesn't play street football as heavily as what he used to when he was back in Germany. So of course you know him as well, which is great to hear. What would you say? Would you criticize the fact that street football in Germany is no longer being used as much?
Actually, I can't really say a lot about it because I'm not really into the street football anymore. Because obviously, you tend to see it more often when you're young, because you yourself, you're outside more often. Like you just come home from school, you go to the to play football, and then you would see kids playing football. But ever since I got to the older state, or like the professional state, I'm not really going out anymore to like play street football. Like when I go out, I go to pitches, I have like an individual coach, or I do myself, I train myself. So I can't really say if there's less street football. I just don't see it anymore because I'm not in the same area where they have those cages where you can play football and that.
But with the idea of street football, would you always say that it does develop players quicker than what 11 aside would do?
100%, especially the technical ability. Myself, I would say I wasn't like a street footballer, like I was playing in the cage every day, but one of my strengths is that I'm technically very good and skillful, and it's a way to get that skill in those street football cages. I don't know if it's called cages in the UK as well, but we call
Yes,
them
yeah, yeah.
cages. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a way to improve.
Here in the UK, we would understand the term cages. I suppose it's kind of like a five-a-side pitch where you're not so enclosed into it. It's just a smaller pitch on astroturf or grass. Sometimes it could be, but we don't really have that in the UK, which again is probably a bit of a shame. So when you were growing up, you also played for Austria Walldorf, which is quite a German name, and I've probably not pronounced it correctly. Was that your first introduction into proper football scenes?
Um, Kind of. I was playing in my village because I'm from a small village, so I started here. But that's like Sunday league, I would call it. So I was playing there, started in the Bambini, and then when I got older, around 10, 11 years old, obviously I also wanted to join an academy, like a Bundesliga team, to have different circumstances. Because if I go to my hometown club here, the circumstances are not really good. Like the field, the grass is bumpy. You can get injured. The grass is it's not great, and also the training, the coach, you don't really get the football education that you should get as in a young age. So I was wanting to follow my brother's footsteps, but around that time I was overweight, so it was difficult for me to get into those academies because uh, football wise I was always good. Like I was on the, I would say, same level or even better, but just my condition, my overall condition wasn't great. I was just standing up front because back then I was a striker. I would wait to get a ball and then score a goal or do whatever. But obviously when you want to join a Bundesliga academy, then you need to have a certain fitness even when you're 11, 12 years old. Like they already check how tall are you, how fast are you. So, and I wasn't fitting the criteria. So um, I was playing for the selection team. My region, there's like before you get to U15 national team, German national team, there are regional selection teams. And then from those selection teams from different states, they choose the national players. So I was called up actually as the only player from a small village club, I would call it, to play in that selection team. And all of my other teammates would be from Hoffenheim, Stuttgart, um, not Stuttgart, sorry, from Hoffenheim, Karlsruhe, and all these big clubs around this area and region. And it was for me a way to basically see that I got the potential. I'm as good as they are, but I just need to work on my condition. So that's what I started working on myself, and I was just eating. I went on a strict diet, and I lost 15 kilograms in 1 month as a I was like 12 years old. So after I lost 15 kilograms, I was skinny, and I was one of the guys that would run non-stop because I was going for a run every day. I worked on my fitness level, and from there on, I went to Astoria Waldorf, which is, by the way, is I don't know if you know Dietmar Hopp. He's the guy behind Hoffenheim and SAP. So
Okay.
the headquarter of SAP is in Waldorf. So before he started with Hoffenheim investing, he's kind of like the Abramovich of Hoffenheim. So before he started there, he started with Astoria Waldorf. So they got a world-class facility. They got the academy, the second team, the reserve team, and the pro team, because they play in fourth division, which is now also a professional league in Germany. Everyone's got their own building, basically, where they have their locker rooms, physio, gym, doctors. So they really have the best circumstances. So I decided to go there because I had the option to play there, and it was also on a high level. It wasn't the highest, but it was the second highest. So I played there until I was in U17, under 17, and then I transferred to another team, Waldhof Mannheim, which is a big traditional club in Germany. Used to play Bundesliga. They have brought out so many like world-class players. For example, Shalanoglu was playing there. Um, what's it called? Gaudino used to play for Bayern Munich. A lot of national players from way back. So it's a big team in Germany. And I transferred to them to play in the highest division possible at that age. So I transferred to a U19 Bundesliga team. Um, Even though I was still a year younger, like I was still under 18, but I was playing under 19. So I got the chance to play against the biggest teams, Bayern Munich's academy, and so on. And that's also when I realized, playing against those players from big teams, that we all have two legs and we breathe the same air. So there's not much difference, except they have a different logo. And so this is when I realized, I got the chance to do something. I gotta do something with it. And where I really got hooked with, I want to be a professional. So yeah.
So I wanted to just focus on when you said that you lost 15 kg in the space of a month at the age of 12. That is quite something for anyone, but at the age of 12, it is quite something even more. But I just wanted to focus on injuries, because you said you were doing runs every day. You said you were constantly running on the football pitch, probably on top of those runs, strict diets, doing even more than the running, gym work, etc. How did you not get injured? Because it's quite something for someone, an adult, to not get injured, but for a child whose body is still developing and growing, how did you manage to sustain injury without sustaining injury problems?
Actually, I was injured. I got injuries, but that wasn't caused by the running. It was more caused by growing. So I had a bit of an issue with my knee, because I got this. I was a bit small, and then I grew, and I think a lot of players actually have that. That they got. I don't know what it's called in English, but
Growing pains.
yeah. So I had that for a long time, but sometimes I would just play through it, or take it easy. But my serious injuries, I would call it, because I've never really had serious injuries, but I always had injuries like for short term, and then I would recover, and then a week after, let's say, I would get injured again. They started once I turned professional. I was a bit unlucky with that, but yeah.
So with Waldorf Mannen, which again, I'm not good with pronouncing any names, but especially German words, it's not my cup of tea. But he joined them in 2014, and again, it allowed you to compete in the highest level possible in the under-19s Bundesliga. However, how would you rate your time when you were there? Because when I looked at some of the results, they were definitely not the best.
Yeah. It was actually one of the best times, to be honest, because obviously we didn't yeah, we got relegated after the season, but it was like the best experience because you got to play against those big clubs, and also it was something for me personally where I could just see where my level is. So there is, for example, I remember back then I played against Bayern Munich. They had three players. One was the son of Mehmet Scholl, probably know him, and one was the son of Gaudino, who was also playing when he was a professional for Mannheim, and one was Sinan Kurt. So three players that were, yeah, known in Germany because Gaudino was playing against us on a Saturday, and the Wednesday before he was playing Champions League with the professionals 90 minutes against Moscow. And Sinan Kurt, he was bought for 2.5 million euros at the age of 17. And so like they were all over the news. So I was playing against them and I could see, okay, this is the level I need to have because he was playing Champions League and he was bought for 2.5 million. So I need to get on this level. And to be honest, it was just um football wise, I can't really say they're like, I mean, they're good, yes. But the biggest difference is just here, is the mental state. Because I know many good players that are good players, but once it gets serious to games and whatever, they kind of get scared and they can't really play to their full potential. And if I'm going to be honest, I was the same when I was young. Um, Now it's different, but when I was younger, my career could have ended differently if I would have the same mindset that I have now way back.
So when you were at Waldorf Minen, you then decided to leave and join FC Spock for a short term because you were injured at the start of that time at FC Spock and you played 8 games. However, this is quite something that resonates with a lot of professional footballers, Dele Alli and other players like yourself. This is kind of in between you joining two teams where you decided that FC Spock would be a short-term option just to get you playing football. Is that correct? Did you just want to go out there, play football, gain fitness? And if so, why don't professional players do this more? Because at the end of the day, they're still earning money and they're still playing football, just not at the level that they want to play at.
Uh, yeah, my case was a bit different because after the season with Mannheim, when we got relegated, I could play another season U19. So we got relegated, and I still wanted to play Bundesliga. So I had an offer from another team in Germany, Gladbach, and I was going to sign there to play another season. But the deal got cancelled last minute because of other reasons. Because I would have to move there, and it was like, yeah, not as easy as I wished. So last minute the deal got cancelled, and in Mannheim I already told my club because they were planning the squad for the next season. I was telling them I'm going to leave. I'm going to Gladbach, and they tried to hold me and to keep me, but yeah, when the deal got canceled last minute, um, I went back to Mannheim and I said, uh, yeah, I can stay. And then they said, no, now the squad is full. Like, we can't do anything anymore. So I was too late there. And then I kind of ended up being with no serious club on a serious level. So then I was, yeah, at that time, I was also speaking to my mate in the Philippines, Stephan Schröck, who was playing also in the Bundesliga for Hoffenheim, Eintracht Frankfurt. He was playing Europa League, and he's also like me, half German, half Filipino. He was playing for the Philippine national team, and I reached out to him, and then he's told me, like, bro, why don't you come to the Philippines? Because I also I was in the focus of the Philippine national team, and he's basically just told me like I'm gonna have a World Cup qualifier against, it was North Korea, actually in North Korea, and he's telling me he's going there in the next couple of days and he's gonna come back at me, and I thought he was just joking around, but a couple of days later I get a random message from a random Filipino number, and they told me they want to have me, they want to bring me in. So then it was around summertime. They told me the earliest I could come was around March. So it was like half a season. It was like 6, 7, 8 months. So in that time, I was like, what am I going to do with those 7, 8 months? I can't really find anything on a serious football level now. And also, if I find something, they won't let me go. So I had a friend that's his dad was basically the sporting director of this team, and I was speaking to them. He was telling me like, come to our club. You can play a little bit of football. It's more just like fun to see your friends because it's not like it's sixth division, I think. Um, you can see your friends, and whenever you get your offer for March or February or April, whenever it is, you can leave without having any issues. So that's what I did then. I signed there, knowing I can leave whenever I want. So once I had the deal in the Philippines, I told them, they gave me my release papers, and I could leave to the Philippines.
You decided to join Global. SC Global is probably the name of the club, Global in the Philippines. In 2016, you were announced as the latest signing, and obviously German and Filipino fellow player Stephan Schröck got you the move there. Now, how would you rate your time there? Because in the Singapore Cup, you played 4 minutes over 3 games before the team got knocked out. Let's just focus on the Singapore Cup, and then we'll talk about the other league, the other fixtures as well.
Yeah, my time there was actually it was good. I mean, in on a personal experience, because it was my first time being by myself in a different country. I mean, I have roots there, but I was far away from my family because obviously they all live here in Germany. So yeah, it was a good personal experience with a lot of this one is with a lot of downs. First of all, when I signed there, they forgot or they made a mistake with my registration, which yeah made it impossible for me to play because I wasn't registered. So that was a bit of unlucky. And then after that, yeah, they had some financial issues as well. So, but talking about the Singapore Cup, since a long time. I remember I was there, and I was, I think, also young, one of the youngest. So I only had like 4 minutes, because, yeah, at this time I still had to like prove myself in that team. Even though for me, for myself, when I got to the Philippines, which I also honestly have to admit was that I came to the Philippines and I thought I was Ronaldo, because I came from a Bundesliga team, and no one really in Europe knows anything about Asian football, especially the Philippine football. So those were exactly my thoughts when I went there. So once I got there, I realized, oh yeah, but no one knows them, but they're still decent. And also, it was like my first senior team, really, that I got to play with, and it's physically on a different level than European football, because obviously they have to make up their because, for example, in Germany they're more tactical and more technically good, and in the Philippines they make it up with just being physically hard on the pitch. So yeah, it took me like 3, 4 months to get used to it.
In the league, though, it was a really successful time for the club. The team only lost 2 out of the 20 games. They won the league. You played 8 games, 1 goal and 1 assist. So, as you just mentioned there, it's one of the youngest players in the squad to get a goal, to get an assist in limited games. Do you remember the feeling of scoring that goal?
Yeah, to be honest, it was more of mixed feelings, because around that time we already had a lot of issues with the club, so I wasn't really happy. Because when I signed there, this club, Global FC, they used to be the yeah, they used to have the most money, the biggest budget in the league. So obviously when Shrek has brought me there, he's told me like, oh, you don't have to worry about anything. So once I got there, the first month, I think maybe the first 2 months were all right, but after that, they had like financial issues, so salaries were late, and yeah, I had a lot of things on my mind. Even when I scored, like people would say, especially some footballers I know from interviews, they would say once they step foot on the pitch, all their sorrows and all their whatever they have on their mind, they just forget about them. And I don't work like that. Like once I have something that annoys me, I I bring it to the pitch, and then my performance is like that as well. So like honestly saying, um, to perform well, I need to have perfect circumstances, which is not the best attribute to have. Yeah.
Well, no, I think a lot of players would still have that. I do understand where you're coming from, and I do understand that the fact that the club weren't in the best financial state at the time, because during the 2016-17 season, the club became a financial mess. So you decided to leave, heading off to Davao Aguilas. And again, my pronunciations are not brilliant, so you could probably do a better one than me. But in March of 2017, you were the first ever foreign-born Filipino to sign for the club. So you've now made history for this club.
Yeah, actually, after global, um, it was my parents were like, "What are you gonna do?" Because there was actually not many clubs in the Philippines that have or there were not a lot of clubs in the Philippines that had like a decent budget, I would call it. So there were not many options. So I stayed in the Philippines because I was also with the national team on the training camp. And then after training, someone came up to me and said, listen, there's this guy. He's the owner. He's a Filipino Chinese guy, lives in Australia. He's the owner of, I think it's Sydney Wanderers in the A League. And yeah, he's going to build this club, this new club called Davao Aguilas. If I'm interested to sign there. So basically, when I signed there, they had 0 players. Um, and I was talking to them, and I didn't know because Asia is a bit different. You know, people tend to talk a lot, and I don't really believe anything until I see it on paper. And yeah, and then we would talk back and forth, and then they would offer me the contract, and I was like, that's great because also this team had a really great budget. They were paying on time. So this is when it started to get better because yeah, they had bigger goals. They wanted to build their own stadium with like a, I think it was like an indoor arena where when it's rainy season they can play inside. They had like this big thing planned. They had a collaboration or partnership with a J1 team in Japan. So they were saying they're trying to do loans to Japan and back and forth. So it was like something that you that gives you hope also for yourself to go to another country to play. And yeah, that's when I signed there. But unfortunately, um, I think during the first week of the season, if I'm not mistaken, I got sick because I got infected with the dengue fever. From I got it from a mosquito, so then I missed out a couple of games, I think, or trainings. I can't really remember because it's been a while.
I've
But
got it here. Sorry to interrupt, but so you were you were in training camp in Malaysia, playing against some
oh yes,
Malaysian teams, and
yes.
then you got dengue fever. And I've never really heard of this fever, but when I looked up on it, I understood that it's from mosquitoes, and obviously in Malaysia they have problems with those kind of viruses over there. So you ended up missing out on a lot of games. In fact, you only ended up playing 11 games. But to get this dengue fever, do you remember what it was like for you? Did you just feel like you couldn't move? Were you in bed? Were you vomiting?
Yeah, actually, it was like this. We had training in the morning because usually we train at 6 a.m. because of the heat. So 6 a.m. we would train and we would finish up training 7:30. I get back home, 8 a.m. I'm back home, and then I go back to bed and take a nap and sleep. Usually I slept until 12 noon. Um, so that day came back from training, took a nap, woke up at 12, and I was feeling sick. Like I was getting just normal. Like when you know you're getting a cold, you get like your body aches, and yeah, that's just how it started. And then um, the day, the same day, I couldn't eat anymore. So I had food in my fridge I was supposed to eat, but I just couldn't see any food or smell or eat it. It was difficult for me. So I thought, oh, maybe I'm just gonna have it's a fever, a cold, whatever. Um, and yeah, and then day by day it got worse to the point where dengue fever is in German. We also call it I don't know what's it called, but it feels like your bones are broken. So my legs, my shin, and everything felt like I had two broken bones, and like all my bones were feeling broken basically, and and I started bleeding out of my mouth. I started having a high fever. I couldn't drink anymore. As soon as I swallowed one drip of water, I would vomit it out again. Um, yeah, but I stayed home still a couple of days because I thought maybe it's just a whatever. Until like after a week or so, I went to the hospital because I couldn't do anything anymore by myself. When I went to the hospital, they actually took a blood test, and then they saw that I had a dengue fever from a mosquito, and then I was out. I don't even remember how long it was, but I also remember that during that time I was told to fly back home to Germany. So while they were in season, I was like 2 weeks out in the Philippines already, and then I flew to Germany, and then I was another, yeah, maybe 2 weeks in Germany to recover. And yeah, it was a difficult time. Yeah.
How did you? I mean, you just mentioned it was difficult for you. I'm sure it was even, worse for you mentally as well, because obviously you were on the edge of this professional status which you were at, but then you were just so close to getting these games and becoming a regular player in the team, and then it was just falling at every hurdle that was possible. How did you manage to get through it mentally? Was your family there when you went to Germany? How did you get through? Because obviously, for anyone to be promised this time in a very good professional status and background, to then get something that really is out of everyone's control.
To be honest, when I was younger, I didn't really think about it that much because um, I had this mindset when I moved to the Philippines, which is I wouldn't recommend anyone to have, because I thought once I signed my professional contract that I will be a professional football player forever, even though you got a contract for a year. In my head, I was thinking after this season I'm just going to sign a new one and extend. I didn't think of um I need to do this and that, I need to have those stats to extend my contract. um I was a bit of naive. So yeah, maybe that also helped me through it though.
Because that you thought you were going to get the contract, you didn't really focus too much on trying to get back as soon as possible.
Yeah, actually, I was even aiming for higher things, even though I was out. I was telling myself, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna go play there for this and that much money, in front of this and that much people. So I didn't really think of it much until it came to the point where, after Davao, basically the first deal abroad, yeah, didn't push through, and then reality hit me, and that's also when my whole personality, my whole mindset, everything has changed.
You also represented your country, the Philippines, under 23 national call up. I believe you played Bahrain and also Manama, if that's the name of the country that I'm saying correctly. So when you got called up, what was the feeling like? Because you mentioned that you were on the radar for some time and then you managed to get the actual call up in a difficult time for you as well. How did you manage? I mean, what was the emotions going through you? How did it happen?
It was great, especially because we went to Bahrain. We had like really decent circumstances with the hotel and the training pitches facility. Everything was, and it was great to play for the country. I was a bit disappointed though, because I was supposed to, when I signed in the Philippines, I was supposed to be there to play for the senior team. So at that age though, when I was still under 23, I was like, okay, I'm gonna play under 23, but I wanted to play for the senior team. The issue here was that the team that I was playing in the beginning, Global FC, that owner is also the owner of the national team. So it's different, like in the UK or in Germany, where the federation does everything. The national team was basically owned by a private person. So we would get, obviously you get money if you play for the national team, if you have camps and whatever. So in the U23s, for example, we got money because this was a different guy. This was the same owner from Davao Aguilas. So this guy, obviously, he had a big budget. He's a rich guy. But the other guy from Global, he would always call players in, call them up, and then they would have games, World Cup qualifiers, whatever, they would have an allowance, like a budget, where they say you get this and that amount of money, and at the end of the day, he would never pay. So what I did at the very young age, I started to strike. I started to say I'm not going to go training. I'm not going to play unless the money is paid, which is promised to us. Because on the national team, it's not on paper, it's not on the contract, but like they basically tell you this and that amount you will get for this call up. So yeah, I was one of the first ones that started all the striking. I kind of kicked myself out.
I mean, to do that though at such a young age, when you've just been introduced to play for your national team, as you mentioned there, that a lot of the countries like England, like Germany, have football federations that wouldn't allow for private companies or private people to own, I suppose, a nation of football, which is just a bit strange. In December of 2017, you got offers from Thailand, but you couldn't agree on a fee or a contract. So at this time, you were also having those two games to represent your country. But when you were representing your country against Bahrain, when you played in that game, what was the feeling like to represent your country, step on the pitch in and away from home?
Yeah, it was great because it's one of the best feelings because obviously in the Philippines you got over 100 million people, I think, and to be one of them to play for the country is a big honor. At the same time, though, if I'm going to be fully honest, when I was a kid, a small kid, I always felt more of a Filipino than a German guy, German person. So I always used to tell my parents, even if I had the chance to decide between Germany and the Philippines, I would always choose the Philippines because my heart was Filipino. But then, obviously, once I saw everything, what's going on, and that, maybe I would think about it again. But at that time, it was a big honor for me.
Of course. And then in this time, January 2020, coronavirus time kind of hit, and you decided to go back to global. The Philippines FA put a deal on hold, and again, global management failed to pay the wages. And FIFA's ban on the club meant that you actually couldn't sign for the team once again. So this is now a real eye opener into, I suppose, the corruption behind Filipino football.
Yeah. Also, it was like before I signed for global again. I think it was like I had a gap in my CV. I wasn't playing professional football for like at least over 1.5 years because after my deal failed from Davao Aguilas to Thailand, after my deal failed, um, I ended up free agent. So this was on the last day of the transfer window. So in Asia, I was out. So this was when I, like as I said earlier, when reality hit me. So then I was like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go back to Germany and then what am I going to do? Because I decided to go plan A has to work out because I've got no plan B. I didn't do the same thing as my brother, go and study and blah blah blah. I fully focused on football. So I was a bit scared, and when I went back to Germany, there was a time after, yeah, it was around January, winter window, where I was invited by an Irish team from the Irish Premier League. I think it's called Premier League. They were playing top division,
Yeah.
Bray Wanderers. Went there, flew there, was trying to train with them, but it was a bit weird because once I got there, it was winter and they didn't train football. Like we weren't on the pitch because they had this thing going on with the coach where they would just the first 2 or 3 weeks they would just run, and then after they have the level of fitness they would start getting touches in. So I went there and we were just running in the woods basically, and it wasn't like I signed there. I was just invited, and it was basically a trial. So after a week of staying there, I was telling myself, how is he gonna sign me if he just sees me running and not touching the ball? So then after a week, I spoke to them and I asked what the situation is, and they basically told me that it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks until they get touches in, and I decided not to continue anymore because also at that time it was like on my expenses. It wasn't like they invited me because they invited me for training, but it was all on my expenses. So I said after a week, no, like this is nothing for me. It's either you want me or we have like a proper trial where I can prove myself. But then yeah, I went back to Germany, and I thought that my career was finished, because it's not like I'm playing for Chelsea and then every team's going to sign me. I come from Asia, and it's really difficult if you come from Asia to find a team in Europe because they don't really know Asian football.
From what you just said about the team in Ireland, it doesn't surprise me. It's such a British thing to do, to spend 2 to 3 weeks of just absolutely running through woods, through forests, because it's something that I criticise as well, and it happens, by the way, through all of England, all of Britain, in terms of Premier League, all the way down to the local kids playing at grassroots level, because all these they spend time doing in the first few weeks is running, and that doesn't improve anyone in terms of their ability. Technically, it's just improving their endurance and how long they can last on the pitch. But of course, if they're not going to be good enough to play on the pitch, there's not even a point in getting them to run. So after this deal fell through in Asia with the FIFA ban on yourself, then becoming a free agent, did you move back to Germany, or did you? Because I know that you played for United City, but that was in March of 2021, so over a year later.
Yeah, that was a bit of a complicated one. I moved back to Germany, and I basically finished my career because it was too difficult to find anything serious on a serious level where you can like have a salary where you can live off, and also maybe it was a bit difficult. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, I'm just receiving a call. That's why.
No problem.
Yeah, it was a bit difficult for me to find something. Then I decided to yeah, go back to normal work, 9 to 5. Um, Went to 9 to 5. Realized that it wasn't my thing. I had a secure job, but it was, yeah, I started to get like mental health issues in terms of I was losing hair, I was getting bald here, um, and I was just watching, the games of my former teams under the desktop in the office, and I was thinking to myself that I could play there, and they were playing Champions League already. So I was like thinking to myself, this is where I should be, and not in the office. So I was getting kind of depressed, I would say, and yeah, decided for myself to just, you know, train for a bit, like just train, do runs, go on the pitch, and maybe see what's coming. And yeah, and then all of a sudden I get this offer again from Global, the team that hasn't paid me, offered me again under a new ownership, and they asked me, like, because they had this new team going on, change the ownership. I was interesting for them, even though I haven't played in such a long time. But they were trying to build a new team. They even signed a player, I think, from the Liverpool academy. Um, but yeah, I signed there, quit my job, and yeah, it turned out that it was all a scam basically. Um, COVID happened as well, but because of that reason that I quit my job, and again I put everything on plan A. I decided to go all in again and not to work 9 to 5 anymore, but to just try and see all the options that I can have and to do everything that I can. So this is when I started to do like hardcore training, like every day, sometimes twice a day, but even marathons. I was running marathons, like yeah, and yeah, I did that for a whole year, and then I get a message from Schröck again. He was player coach of United City, and they qualified for Champions League. And he's asked me, like, I see you training every day. Like, what are you doing? What are your plans and all that? And I told him, like, I'm trying to find a team. And then he told me, you know what? I'm gonna give you another chance. Come back to the Philippines, sign for this team, and you're gonna play Champions League. So he was the guy who was basically opened the doors for me again to go back to professional level and to Asia. um, and yeah, and then I ended up playing in the Champions League. We went to the training camp in Dubai. There was a lot of, also a big budget involved because this was the first time Champions League for them. So Yeah, this was actually when it was going up again, but then it goes down again.
Well, talk to us about how it went down again, because obviously you were in the Champions League. You did lose every game. You only scored one goal in 6 games for the team, not yourself. Melbourne City, Pantham United, and Jenham Dragons you played, but you also played right back, so a position that's a bit obscure to you, I'm going to guess, because obviously your position is a midfielder.
Yeah. The one that you just mentioned was the second year in the Champions League. The year before, we were also playing in the Champions League, and because of COVID, we were playing in a bubble. So we played in Uzbekistan. Before that, though, I signed the contract in United, and we weren't able to train because of COVID. In the Philippines, contact sports and everything was not allowed. So I think 3 weeks prior to our first Champions League game, while other teams and leagues were already continuing their league, we still haven't even trained once together. Like all of us players were in different countries. We were based somewhere else, and we haven't trained once together. So a couple of players didn't have the fitness level they should have because they didn't have the training, and not all of them were training like me, for example. So 3 weeks prior to the Champions League game, our president says we're going on a training camp to Dubai for 2 weeks, and then we fly direct to Uzbekistan. So I went to Dubai, and everything was great. The club had spent, I think it was $2 million on a training camp for 2 weeks for us, and it was in the same area where all the Premier League teams and national teams go to in Dubai. So it was a great experience. Um, but the problem there was that also in the beginning they had the money, they put everything in, and then we played Champions League. I think the first month our salary was okay, was good, and then the second month already it was late. It wasn't too late. It was like 3 days, 4 days late, but it was already giving red flags. So after the second month, the third month was late. I mean later, and then it went on from that. Like then it went from 1 month late to 2 months late, and 3 months late, and this is where it all went down again. So yeah.
So, as a player, though, to go through all of this, because I've never ever spoke to someone who's played for all these teams and never really found his feet too well with clubs not paying you on time, etc. So, this is becoming quite a regular thing, and it's probably a bit of a criticism towards teams in Asia because it is quite a predominant thing where teams play late. And of course, there is teams that do pay on time, but unfortunately, it is just more so that there are teams that don't pay on time. So, for you to go through all of this, but then still playing at the highest possible level in the Asian Champions League. What's going through your mind? Are you wanting to leave at this point? Or you wanting to just see what goes on?
No, I actually wanted to use that chance because Champions League was always my dream, and I used that platform to go elsewhere to put something on my CV and get a better contract, and a contract where the salary is on time, obviously. So yeah, even though the first year I didn't get much playing time because I got infected with COVID also, and I infected the whole team. I think I infected 11, 12 players. So the last 2 games, I think we only had one substitute, which was the goalkeeper. So yeah, but the second year, I stayed at this club only because I was telling myself, okay, this year didn't work out well because I got COVID. I only played one game for a couple of minutes. The next game, actually, I was supposed to start. So the day before, we had the COVID test, and I already felt sick. Um, yeah, the day before, I got sick, so I wasn't able to play 90 minutes. So that was unfortunate because that would have been against the Japanese champion, Kawasaki Frontale, and they have players now because back then Mitoma, for example, was playing, that now is playing for Brighton. Um, Glasgow, Celtic Glasgow has two players of them. So yeah, there was a decent level, like a really decent level that I really wanted to play in, but obviously I got sick, and then um, I like I could just scratch that one. So I decided to stay one more season for United, even though the money was late. But I wanted to use that next Champions League year to really play. And yeah, this is the reason why I signed another deal, and then I stayed there and played the second Champions League that you have mentioned in Thailand. It was still in the bubble, and from there on, I played right back because there was just the right back position was kind of not really doing well, and me myself, I've been playing almost all the positions except of goalkeeper. So I said like right back, easy, I can do it, and yeah, I played right back. Even though I was also injured at that time, I had a strain on my thigh, and I played through it though because I was like, I can't miss out this Champions League season. This is like my last chance. And I was before the game, I swallowed 2 painkillers. I did the warm up, and I felt still pain because it's a strain, and I couldn't sprint. And then before kickoff, I swallowed another painkiller, and then during halftime again. So I was just full of painkillers, and I could still feel the pain, but I still pushed through because I said I just need the minutes. I need to play, even though I couldn't play on 100% potential that I have, but I just needed to be on that pitch. So it was still unlucky, but also lucky at the same time because I could push through. I think 60 something minutes. So and also I took that right back position because I just needed to be on the pitch.
So now moving into today, I believe you were playing for Pisim Yok. I don't know how you pronounce that. Can you pronounce that for me?
Yogyakarta.
There we go. And you were playing for them recently in Indonesia in the second tier, but now you're a free agent. So what's kind of happened in the last few weeks and months?
Yeah, actually, because you skipped that, after the Philippines, I transferred to Malaysia, Lebanon, and then Indonesia. So I always wanted to play in Indonesia because they have a big fan base. I think they have the best fans in the world. Every game is literally sold out, and the fans are crazy over there. So I actually signed a deal in the first division, but then the league got cancelled because they had 170 deaths in the stadium because of the rivalry. The fans just have beaten each other up, so they canceled the season. Then I had another offer, also from the first division. But to be fair, though, and to be completely honest, the team from second tier that I signed with have made a better offer for me financially, and I'm at that age where like I need to look for the money as well. So yeah, I decided to go there, and there, to be honest, everything was perfect. I loved it there. Me and my wife moved there together. My son was born there. Um, Everything was good. I would love to go back there, to be honest, but I was also unlucky because after arrival, I first got sick. I was a week out. Then I played the first game. Second game, during warm up, I get a strain in my calf, and it wasn't too serious though. I was out for 1.5 weeks, but then after 1.5 weeks, I start training again. First training, I get sick again, fever, another week out. So obviously, I understand the club. I arrived there as a foreign player, and as a foreign player, you always have to impact the team. Like you need to be the best player. You're on the, um, yeah, they have the biggest budgets for the foreign players. So there's a there's pressure that you have, and you need to perform. So because I couldn't perform, they decided to, yeah, take me from registration and sign another foreign player. So then I was stuck there, um, even though I wanted to stay. But during October last year, I think it was, I was already free agent. So then I had an offer lined up in December for Thailand. Until 31st December, I had time because this is when the transfer window closed. But I couldn't go there because my son was born around that time. So I couldn't leave Indonesia, and I wouldn't want to leave my wife there by herself. I didn't make the deadline. Also went back to Germany, signed a new deal in Iceland in February, and then this thing with volcano eruption happened that it always got postponed until July 10 this year in summer. And then they told me you have a new deal, but it's only going to go until end of the season, which would be September 30th. And I said, like, 2 months to relocate with the whole family. is a bit too much, especially because in those European leagues, financial wise, it's not on the same level like Asia, where you can really say like, I'm going to save up a certain amount of money every month, which is giving the family security. So it wasn't really worth it. So yeah, this is why I'm still free agent, because I haven't found the right offer. To be fair though, it's kind of my own fault as well, because I had an offer, a really, really good offer from Bahrain, Middle East. But I kind of just pokered it too high. I was just negotiating this whole time. It was going back and forth. And if I'm going to be fully honest, this offer is something that I shouldn't have rejected. Um, well, I haven't rejected it. I was just trying to push it higher and higher and higher. And then they said, no, we're not going to come to an agreement. So this was, yeah, my fault. So now I'm still looking, but at the same time, I also I got into the how you call it. I don't want to say agent, but the intermediary work, because I had player ask me that played in European top levels like France, top division. I have a friend that also played, for example, for Arsenal. Maybe you know him if you like Arsenal. He now plays for Atalanta Bergamo. That reach out to me and tell me, like, for example, well, I want to go to Asia because I'm 31, 32, and what I can get here gross, they would get net in Asia. So I kind of just got into this business, and I'm doing that now. But at the same time, also, I'm still looking to play. It's just a question of if I'm gonna find something suitable for me and my family.
Was the player by any chance said Kolasinac?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. I thought it was. So now with you doing the intermediary work and the agent work in football, of course, you would like to probably be the professional player more than an agent, I'm going to guess. So in the next few
100%.
months, of course, with January and the January window coming up, do you see there's a chance of you coming back to professional football if the deal in January doesn't occur? Is there a chance that you just turn to being an agent?
Honestly, it's gonna be very difficult because, yeah, to play on a professional level and to have like that certain salary is going to be difficult, because obviously you need to have something to show them. I can tell them I'm a good player and this and that, but it's not going to bring me anywhere. So my idea was to start somewhere, like here, for example, play just to play, um, like semi-pro or whatever. Even if it's if I get something pro, then that's even better. But just to play, because this year around March, I had a call up for the senior national team, or I was in talks with the head coach, and they had a World Cup qualifier game against Iraq in Iraq, and that would have pushed my CV again. So um, it turned out that the call up was taken back because that time I had a deal in Iceland, and I was listed Iceland, like on the Icelandic league, but because of the volcano eruption, everything got cancelled, and then I was free agent, and they didn't want to call up a free agent player. So what they told me was, you need a club. Once you get a club, you can get invited for the training camp again. So what I'm hoping for is just to find a team, um, to get called up for the national team again, and then to get back to the level where I want to be. So it's going to be very difficult, tricky, but I'm going to try the best, because I'm 27 years old, and I can't really get it off my mind that maybe this was the end of my career. Like, when I think about it, last year, October, I think I made my last game. It's been so long. When I played my last game, I didn't even realize that it was my last game. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to end my career on my peak, and not because it is how it is, you know. So it's a bit difficult to accept. So I'm still trying to the best.
Well, of course, Andy, I wish you all the best with that. So we've spoken about your whole career spanning in Germany, Philippines, for your playing for your country and so much more. But of course, it is now a religious thing to do here on the channel where we build you a FIFA card. So what would your pace be on EAFC?
My pace. I'm not the fastest, so um, if what would I say? Maybe pace. I would say between 65 maybe and 70 because I'm not the fastest. I'm not a sprinter.
If you had to pick one of the numbers, we can't do this thing where we say in between the
Okay.
numbers. You have to pick a number.
Okay. Let's do 65 because I'm really not the fastest.
Do you play EAFC?
Yeah, my brother-in-law, he's got EAFC,
Mm.
so I'm playing with him all the time.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Shooting as a midfielder, what would you put that?
Shooting, I would put a good 82.
82. That's high for a midfielder. Would you say that that's one of the strongest parts of your game?
Yeah, shooting is one of the something that I'm good at, especially the knuckleballs.
Yes, well, I do like a knuckleball myself. Passing, of course, as a midfielder, the engine of the team, the passing needs to be good.
Yeah. Um yeah, if you want my honest opinion, I don't want to push it too high, because I don't know the level of Armin, for example, what they said. So passing, I
Well,
would say I'm also is one of my strengths. So yeah, without pushing it too high, I would say maybe let's say 78.
78. That's still very good for a midfielder. With Armin, I don't think we actually did a FIFA card. I find it hard to remember if we did or not, because I think we kind of started it only a matter of months ago. I'll have to get him back on and do a FIFA card with him. Dribbling, what would you put that?
Oh, dribbling. Also, I would put a 75.
75. Again, with midfielders, I feel like dribbling isn't the most important thing, but certainly as a CDM, it would definitely help if you had it.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm actually a very skillful player. I used to be very skillful because of the street football. I used to do all kinds of tricks and games like elastico, and I would try the rainbow flick and all that. But yeah, when I was younger, I stopped doing it because coaches obviously would tell me like, you need to calm down, and it would still work out, but I would get so many people talking, so that I just decided to stop. And now I'm just more of a player, like one-touch player, or you know,
The kind of a player that
simple.
doesn't really... Yes, simple player.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Defending, what would that be? Again, for a CDM, that's necessary, but if you're going to go into central midfield, that can be left to other people.
yeah. I would also say, okay, not let's say it's 70, 74.
74. First time you've gone away from the 75-ish. So last but not least, physicality. As a CDM, it's quite necessary, but for yourself, being how tall you are, I mean, again, that might be quite necessary.
Physicality, does that mean also conditioning, like running and that, or is it just like
Body strength.
body strength? Then 74.
74 once again. So that should be quite a decent card within the 70s. And Andy, I welcome you back to the show any other time that you would like to come on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking about your whole journey, playing for your country, playing in Germany, playing in Indonesia, and so much more. And it's been a brilliant hour talking to you about your whole career. And I wish you all the best when you're trying to find a new club.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.